Welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Player Ranks. In this series, we rank various Yu-Gi-Oh! Themes based on your comments and suggestions. Come back every tier list Tuesday to see an all-new installment of this series. Alright guys, we are back with a brand new tier list. This tier list is for every single festival that's run in Master Duel so far. I've basically played in all of them, obviously, and most of you guys have too. Yeah, it's going to be reviewing all of them, all the different rule sets, all the different ban lists, which one's the best, which one's the worst. We obviously have on the channel a playlist for all the tier lists, so if you want to see previous tier lists or if you want to recommend other tier lists to the channel, let me know in the comment section down below, and if you disagree with me, obviously, let me know. So here are all of them. Let's start off with the Exceed event. This one was actually pretty good. This is the first event that we ever had, so we didn't have a super comprehensive ban list. One of the crazy things that was not on the ban list is, since it was the very first one, you had the self OTK decks. There was still a lot of floodgates, and on top of that, a lot of the non-Exceed decks that are still good were available. So stuff like Time Lord, stuff like Phantasm Spirals, stuff like True Dracos, like all of those decks were actually completely playable in the Exceed event. So that kind of like, it had a little bit of an issue with it, but overall I'd say this event was kind of like middle of the road. What I liked about the ban list in this, I'd say it's probably like a B tier one. What I liked about this ban list is that it didn't go out of its way to hit like random Exceed decks. They didn't like decide like, oh, we don't want like Madolches to be too powerful. Like we don't want what else is like an Exceed deck? Like we don't want Zodiacs to be too powerful. Like they didn't do too much of that, and they didn't like start limiting and picking and choosing which Exceed decks were going to be playable and which ones weren't. So it's cool. I thought it was very cool. Utopia deck finally got a chance to really actually do something. But for the most part, if I remember correctly, the majority of this was mostly just Zodiacs everywhere, and then a bunch of like non-Exceed related stuff. So that I'd say is probably somewhere in B tier. NR Festival, this is one of my favorite festivals. There's two here that I really like, but I think NR was one of my favorites. I put it in S tier. NR was fun. I think there was a few. The only issue I would ever say about NR, let me just describe this a little bit. NR is basically only common and rare cards, no supers and no ultra rares. This one was cool because the investment cost to like change decks was like, it didn't exist. Like if you were playing a deck and you're like, this is kind of whack, you could just like change to a new deck and it cost you almost nothing. Like this is one of the events that I really want them to like bring back at least once, because like I said, you can change decks and it literally doesn't like cost you anything that is relevant. Like you can go, okay, I'm playing Metal Foes today, then tomorrow I'm gonna play I forget that ritual deck. I can play Phantasm Spirals. Like you can just pick a new deck every single day, and it's not like a huge commitment to do so. The one drawback to it is that it's like there are two decks that are very much better than all of the other decks. So the two best decks are Megalith and Metal Foes. Those are by far the two best decks. I'd say Phantasm Spirals would be in there, but Phantasm Spirals got hit on the ban list. Like hit on the NR ban list like preemptively, because I think they put Battle to 1, and I think maybe some other card. Also, there's no terraforming, there's no metaverse, stuff like that. But overall, I like this festival a lot. Like the amount of different decks that I played was just insane. I played like a chaos. I played like a Danger Chaos deck. I played Phantasm Spirals. I played Aqua Actresses. Like I would just craft new decks like almost every day. I'd be like, I'm kind of bored of this, so let me go make a new one. I'm bored of this one, let me go make a new one. Like that's the greatest part about the NR Festival, is that it was so accessible. Like you could just pick new things, and it made it very fun and interesting to actually play, because you could just swap. You could just literally just swap from one to another to another to another. It's really cool. Next is Synchro. This one came out around the time Sword Soul was out. This is another weird one. I'd probably say it's somewhere like in B tier, maybe C tier. This came out around Sword Soul time, and Sword Soul was by far the best one to play in this. You could also play like Adamantimators. Adamantimators was decent. I wouldn't say it's as good as Sword Soul, because Sword Soul is like pure Synchro, like a pure Synchro deck. You could also play the Synchron deck, which was also really good. I'd say the only problem with Synchro is that the turns just like lasted forever. Like literally the turns were just insane. They would go on and on and on. And this is still very early, so we still had floodgates available in these. And the floodgates, in these kinds of events really can hurt. They're even more annoying than in the regular meta. So I'd probably say it's probably B, maybe even C tier. Like, it was almost a situation where like Sword Soul was almost tier 0 in this one. It was actually kind of frustrating to play against. And if you weren't playing against Sword Soul, you're playing against Synchrons, and Synchrons have like a 25-minute turn. And the problem with Synchrons is like if you Ash the Junk Speeder, or if you Imperm the Junk Speeder, if you Effect Veiler Junk Speeder, they literally would just scoop the game. And then you don't get any of the rewards because you can't do the normal summons, the special summons. You can't do any of the reward stuff because if you stop Junk Speeder, you win the duel. If you don't stop Junk Speeder, you lose the duel. It's so binary. It's every single time Junk Speed. It comes down to Junk Speeder, and it's actually a major flaw in the deck. But that's a totally different like discussion. But yeah, I'd probably say somewhere around C. Fusion was in a weird situation. It's not F tier, but it's like it came out. I'd say it's probably like C. It came out before Despia was really, really good. And it came out after DPE came out. So if I remember correctly, there's a lot of decent decks that you could play. It's basically all of the pure fusion decks were available. If I remember correctly, I was probably playing a Blue Eyes fusion deck for this one. This one was, I'd say it's sort of fun. The only frustration with it was DPE was literally everywhere. Everybody played Phoenix Enforcer. Everybody played. Yeah, they played basically Phoenix Enforcer. And again, it was right before Despia was actually good. So it was like early Despia. It was like they didn't have Mirror Jade, and they didn't have like a lot of the really, really good Despia cards. They were playing like a sort of like a Dark Soul, not a Dark Soul, like Dark Lord Despia deck. So it was a little too early for it to actually be good. So I'd probably say it's somewhere in like C tier. And then a lot of the other decks were a little bit nerfed. It was like Shadal's. It was Shadal's invoked, but without the link monsters that put Alistair into the graveyard. So it was just like there's not a lot of good like pure fusion decks to make this like a really, really fun event. Limit 1 is another one I really like. This is definitely like an S tier one. It's incredible in Yu-Gi-Oh! When you limit every single card, it almost like it's like it creates a ban list. It's almost like having a ban list on the entire game, and no one deck becomes broken, which actually I really, really like, because essentially everyone was just playing a pile deck, and you could never be mad at anything, because it's like if your opponent had Max C, it's like, whatever, there's like one Call by the Grave, there's one Max C, there's one Raigeki, there's one Harpy's Feather Duster, everything's at 1, so it's like, there's nothing that's like absolutely broken. There's one Alistair, there's like every single card that is in the game is all at 1, so you're just always playing some sort of large pile deck. I remember for this one I played a Chaos deck. I played like a Chaos, like I think it was like a 40 card Chaos Danger OTK deck, and I had so much fun in this event because again, you could play basically whatever you want. You just throw 40 good cards into it with a general theme, and then of course I was playing Orbital Hydrolander because he's like the GOAT, and yeah, it was just a really, really fun one. Like I said, it basically takes all archetypes out of the realm of possibility, and everyone basically is playing like almost like 2005 like it's almost like GOAT format. It's like modern GOAT format in the sense that you're just playing just a bunch of good staples. You're not really worried about building a deck around a theme or an archetype. You're just straight up just playing the best 40 cards with a general theme that you can. It's like almost playing, it's like playing an old Chaos deck, for example, from like 10 years ago. So it was actually pretty cool. Definitely one of my favorites, maybe even my favorite. But obviously, if you guys disagree, you know what to do. 0 extra deck, 0 festival. This is basically no extra deck. You could not use any extra deck monsters. This one kind of sucked. It was like a Flunderies fest. Generally, I try to play a little bit off meta just to have a little bit more fun. This one, I think I played Shino Birds for this one, of all things. I played Shino Birds, this one's a little bit weird because not only did they hit a lot of the extra, like they hit all of the extra deck cards, so none of the extra deck cards were legal, but on top of that they did this weird thing where they hit some of the ritual decks, which was actually kind of annoying. I think they hit Drytron, but yeah, it's like if you're not going to allow us to use the extra deck, there's tribute summoning, there's inherent special summoning, and then of course there's ritual summoning. Those are the 3 things that you do when you can't use your extra deck, and then they went through the trouble of hitting some of the various ritual decks, which was actually kind of annoying. But this was like a Flunderies fest. Everybody was playing either Flunderies, True Dracos, or some sort of like back row heavy Mania deck. For most of these, actually Eldritch was a really, really strong deck for most of these, and if I remember correctly, Eldritch was actually half decent in this one, but this one was really just kind of boring. It cut out all of the extra deck monsters, obviously, in the game, which like actually kind of sucks, and you're basically stuck playing a deck with no extra deck, and most of the time Flinderies was just a really frustrating thing to play. But again, I played Shino Birds, so their wins, they could make their win barrier statue, and I just shuffle it back into the deck, so that was actually kind of fun. I'd say, like, even though that deck was kind of fun, I'd say overall it was kind of a boring festival. We've got Duelist Cup 1. Duelist Cup 1 is the first, like, competitive event that we had. It's tough to really rate this. I'd probably put it in C, just because it's basically just regular ranked mode. It's almost frustrating that it replaced the festival, because I really like the festivals, because it gives you an opportunity to play Master Duel that is a non-meta, in a non-meta setting. You could play with some cool new weird rule set, but this one was just like all meta, because obviously it's basically like the regular ranked ladder, but everyone is just playing in the Duelist Cup. I have my issues with the Duelist Cup. Number one, I don't like the fact that it really is just about who plays the most. Not really who plays the most, but who can play the most and win in a limited amount of time. And I don't have quite as much time to play Master Duel as other people do, so they end up winning. Even though in the Duelist Cup, I think I have a pretty high win rate. I had like an 80% win rate in the Duelist Cup. Both Duelist Cups, I think, between the two Duelist Cups, I have an 80% win rate. But I just don't have the time to, like, play all the duels that other people do. So even if I can win a lot, I can't win enough. So that's kind of my issue with it. It's more of a marathon than it is like a race, and that's kind of one of the more frustrating parts about the Duelist Cup. Number two, Duelist Cup number one was just marred with so many like issues. Number one, you could play on Xbox, and then you wouldn't play, and you can turn off cross-platform, and you wouldn't play against anyone on the PC or PlayStation or any other setting. So you just play on the Xbox, and you're playing a bunch of kids. The guy who got first place just played on the Xbox and played against like lesser individuals or lesser players, which was really, really frustrating. On top of that, yeah, the first one was just, it was like, I remember the format was just horrible. It was like the adventure engine was like not at full power, because it didn't come out at full power, but it was very prevalent. There was a bunch of pile decks. Crystron Hacklefibrax was in there, and they had Crystron with the Auradon. That was incredibly annoying, very tough to play against. Like, if they started going off with that engine, you basically just lost every single time. It just really, with Master Duel being a best of one format, if you lose the coin flip and they just start going off with the entire like Rose Crystron line, there's just nothing that you can even do to prevent any of that, which is really frustrating. And what's worst is when they like go full combo and then they max EU. That was like really, really, really annoying. And then True King of All Calamities was still in the game, so I think second place was actually Virtual World with True King of All Calamities with the adventure engine. Super annoying. Yeah, the first one, I'd say the crossplay issue was there, and then of course my other issue with it was just the deck variety at that, like the metagame during that time, which is very, very poor. Synchro Exceed, I actually like Synchro Exceed better than Exceed and Synchro. This one was weird. They hit Synchrons, which is odd, because Synchrons is by no, like, it's just not the best Synchro deck. And they hit a few other like random. This one is the difference is about with Synchro Exceed is in this one they actually started hitting like archetypes that are within the parameters of what they're trying to control. So the whole point is they want you to play Synchros and Exceeds, but then they started actually hitting some of the Synchro and Exceed decks within those parameters. So yeah, like I said, Synchrons was hit on this one, which I didn't think they needed to be hit, but this one was still fun because it's almost like this one, when you played it, you felt like you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh in like 2016, like 2015, like around that era of Yu-Gi-Oh. It's almost like you went back in time a little bit. For this one, I think I believe I played like some sort of, I believe I played like a Chaos Blue Eyes deck for this one. Yeah, it was actually kind of fun because again, you can go with the Synchro route with that deck. You could go the Exceed route with that deck, and I think that this one was actually quite fun because you could play like a nice blended deck that used different types. And Synchros and Exceeds, you can actually use them together more so like than like fusions and synchros, because you need tuners involved and stuff like that. But yeah, this one was actually really fun. I thought the metagame was really cool. Sword Soul was again good for it. Sword Soul, since it came out, was pretty much good in almost all of these events, other than like the 0 extra deck one. Next is Link. Link was terrible. Link was horrific because they really screwed up with this one. They decided, to be fair, a lot of people were very mad at the time, and obviously I hated this too because I'm putting an F tier. But they actually turned this into a competitive ladder in the same way that the Duelist Cup was a competitive ladder. And that was really, really annoying, because like the whole point of these festivals is to try something new, to play something, worth playing. Like, let me go try playing a Link deck, right? You craft this different deck so that you can have fun playing a totally different deck. And they spoil this event by turning it into a ladder, just like the other ones. And that was really bad. I think this was the only festival out of all of them where I just didn't finish the rewards. I got to the sleeves and I'm like, honestly, I'm just not having fun. I'm not playing it anymore. As far as the ban list was kind of frustrating too, because again, there was only a handful of viable decks. And on top of the fact that there were only a handful of viable decks, they decided to hit Adignisters, and they decided to hit preemptively hit Adignisters, and they decided to preemptively hit Decode. Like the Code Talkers. And I'm not really sure why they hit the Code Talkers preemptively. Like, that deck doesn't see that much meta play, like almost none. Like, if you play 1,000 games, you might play like 2 Code Talker decks. That deck does not see a lot of play. This was the perfect like event for them to participate in that, and they just decided to preemptively hit that deck, which I to this day I'm just like, why would you hit that deck of all decks? And it's not like that's a deck that I own and I was like eager to play it in this event. I just legitimately, why would you hit that deck for somebody? The only decks that were really like the big 3 decks were Live Twins, Salamangrates, and Marincess. Those are like the big decks. You had a rogue option, which was the Umi Legendary Ocean deck, but the problem with the Umi Legendary Ocean deck was if you played against Marincess, it was kind of like a wash, because they're a water archetype. You summon Kairu Shin and it does absolutely nothing against them because they're all water anyway. So that was kind of like the big like issue with playing the Legendary Ocean deck. But the Legendary Ocean deck could pretty easily beat Live Twins, and it could pretty easily beat Salamangrates, because Fire Salamangrates, and then Live Twins have like 8 million different attributes, so you have a pretty good matchup there. But yeah, it was basically like a 3-deck format. It was a competitive ladder. You needed to actually complete the ladder to get some of the rewards, the gems, stuff like that. I think most of the community actually really, really disliked this one. And again, it's not anything to do with the like Link monsters. Like, Link monsters are fun because they're so generic, and you can basically, like, most people already have a lot of the good ones. But what made this event unfun was that ladder, and just that ban list kind of sucked. Next is the Anti-Spell Festival. Anti-Spell Festival was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So I thought it was going to be like filled with trap decks. Like, I thought it was just going to be swimming, and like everyone was going to be playing like a back row deck. Actually, not true. I personally played a going second deck. I played a going second deck with Dangers, and I played Red Reboot, Dangers, Gizmekarochi. Like, I played a going second like OTK deck, almost like a 8-axis deck, and I had a lot of fun with that deck. Like I said, it's shocking because it was one of the only ones where like I didn't feel like I needed to go first. I'd probably say it's actually surprisingly somewhere in B tier. I actually had fun with it. And there really wasn't as many back row decks as you thought there was going to be, because after a while, at first I was playing like Jinzo in the deck, I was playing Red Reboot in the deck, I was playing Evenly Matched in the deck, but after a while I realized like most people aren't even playing that. Most people are just playing like Adamancipators and Sword Soul, and like just cards that, again, they just put up a board without really using a lot of spell cards. So in the end, I actually just cut most of those cards and just build a pure going second deck, and it was actually pretty fun to play. But yeah, this one was, I like the themes where it doesn't focus on one thing, it rather just excludes certain things. I like that a lot more. So Anti-Spell, you basically get rid of spells, and then they got rid of spells, and they went, okay, now be creative, have fun, try different things. And I like those festivals a lot more than just like, okay, you have to play Links, okay, you have to play like fusions. You have to play synchros. Like I like when they just like remove one thing rather than limit you to one thing. I just like these festivals more because again, people can be creative and try different things in those. Same thing with like NR. Like they remove two rarities, and the majority of rarities are fully available. Be creative, have fun, try different things. Limit one, right? Every card's limited. Have fun. That's your one rule. Rather than just focus on a single sort of thing. So I thought this one was actually pretty good, surprisingly. Duelist Cup 2 I thought was better than Duelist Cup 1. The ban list was just significantly better. The best deck was like Despia. And Despia, honestly, just like I always tell people, like Despia's not that strong. Like it's a good deck, don't get me wrong, but it's not like outrageously strong. Like you think of it like a tier 3 deck, like Infernoids, for example, is like a tier 3 deck. Despia is not that much better than Infernoids. Like, it's better than Infernoids. It's better than Earth Machines. It's better than Madolches. It's better than, what's like another tier 3 deck? Like, it's better than Invoke Dogmatica, but it's not that much better than any of those decks. It's like, if those decks are a 3, then Despia is like a 5. So it is better than those decks, but it's not better by, like, it's not a blowout. It's not like the first Duelist Cup where you were playing against like the Crystron deck, basically the Crystron deck with the Adventure Engine and the Crystron and the Auradon, and then they end on 8 negates. Like it's not even comparable. So yeah, that was like the best deck. I think the big like issue in this Duelist Cup was, first of all, they fixed one big thing, was the crossplay thing. They fixed it, so you couldn't do the crossplay cheat. So all of the winners were actual like legitimate winners, and they fixed a lot of the cheating stuff like that. Again, the same issue persisted as in the previous Duelist Cup, which is the major issue with the Duelist Cup is the rewards. Number one, kind of suck because it's like you get these like legacy tickets. It's like they're almost like legacy tickets, but they're not really legacy tickets. But you basically pull nothing out of them. It's like you pull like the barrel dragon that like, yeah, you pull like a barrel dragon that's like a UR, and like those packs just have nothing like good in them. Yeah, like you get like those tickets, and then you get like nameplates, and it's like, dude, like what are you playing for? Like put something on the line. Like give us some like UR points, like UR dust, or give us some gems. Like when you win, give us something that isn't like just nameplates. Like who cares about those nameplates? Most people don't even look at those nameplates. Like how cool would it be if like the top 10 players who did well in like the Duelist Cup got to keep the Duelist field year round, like the Duelist Cup field? Like that field is really cool. That field that like is covered in fire, and every single time it gets attacked, like a little piece chips off, and then it falls. You fall into like a vortex of space. Like that field, the Duelist Cup field, looks awesome. And I have no idea why they don't just like the top 10 people don't at least get to keep that, right? Just something. It's almost like those rewards aren't even worth it. What you're mostly playing for is bragging rights. And it's actually kind of sad because it's like they don't get any kind of special cosmetic or anything. It kind of sucks because it's like they can give you whatever they want. They don't have to like manually produce anything. They don't have to create like a solid gold trophy. They can just create like whatever they want in the game and give kind of like a special cool prizing to the people who actually top the Duelist Cup, rather than just like nothing, yeah, right now like the prizing I think is one of the real things about the Duelist Cup, because it's a grind fest. It really is, because you have to stay up night after night, and you have to maintain a really strong win ratio, and you have to build a deck that is good against like a variety of things, Runic, and you have to be ready for everything. You have to be ready for Runic, you have to be ready for Virtual World, you have to be ready for Flaunderies, and it's all a best of one format. And sometimes there's gonna be situations you're just gonna lose because your deck's just not prepared for it. You just don't draw the out against Runic and you lose, and it's kind of one of those frustrating things. You get outgrinded by Labyrinth. It's like sometimes you just don't draw the right cards to beat some of these decks. So I'd say it's probably like in B. I think this is one of those events where it's like I don't mind it at all, because it's marketed as a competitive event, so I don't mind it. Whereas the Link was like, this is supposed to be like a festival, this is supposed to be fun. This is marketed as a competitive event, so I would prefer that they, and I don't mind that, I would prefer that they gave us better pricing. The pricing was just dog shit. And then the last one is Theme Chronicle. This is the newest one. It just like kind of just started a couple of days ago. I've actually been having fun with it. Again, they limited a lot of different decks that you could use. A few archetypes actually did slip through the cracks, but the whole point of this one is just to use decks from the solo mode, which is cool because like the whole point is like if you've been playing this game for an entire year, you have played all of the different solo modes and you've at least tried a lot of the decks. If at least to get the free gems out of the solo mode, you have tried to play some of those decks, and you probably have liked some of them and not liked some of them. And there's actually a pretty large variety. A few decks actually slip through, stuff like Suships, for example. Suships are a really powerful deck right now in that. But what I like about this event is, number one, there's probably like 20 playable decks, so that's nice. There's like 20 playable decks. But what I like a lot about it is that this is one of the only events where it's going second is very, very comfortable. Like it really is. Like there's so many going second decks that are actually relevant in this, and I actually like that. I'd probably say it's probably somewhere around A tier. I like that there are so many like relevant going second decks. Like Crusadia is a going second deck. Suships are going second deck. You can go second Dreadnought, Dugaris, attack twice, and then win the game that way. I like that about this festival. There was somebody complaining like, oh my god, I win a coin flip. I won a coin flip, but I actually lost because I'm just going to get OTK'd anyway. It's like, dude, yeah, yes, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh should be. Like, are you expecting to win a coin flip and be guaranteed to win every single time? Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is supposed to be like a toss-up. You're not supposed to guarantee yourself a win just because you won a coin flip. And I actually like that about this. There's going second decks, there's going first decks. There's a variety of different decks, like Monarchs are in there. Suships, like I said, are in there. Crusadia is in there. Suships are like a really, really cool budget deck. Beat Troopers are really good in this one. And what's really awesome about it is that the loner decks are actually kind of good in this one. Like, the loner decks are somewhat good enough to just play. You can just play the loner decks and you don't have to stress yourself out about like actually building a deck. The best budget option is just to play the loner deck. Like the Beat Trooper deck is actually kind of nice, along with a few other decks in there. But yeah, that is kind of the last one. I'm excited to see. This has been kind of like a year of Master Duel. I'm very excited to see what future events there are going to be. These have been sort of like obviously my most favorite to my least favorite. Overall, like I said, these events are really, really cool, and I hope that they don't do anything like the Link one anymore, because that one kind of sucked. But other than that, I think these have been overall a net positive for the game. Most of them have been pretty fun and a nice change of pace from just a regular ladder. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if there are any suggestions that you have, please leave them down in the comment section down below.